Section 22 of Strength and How to Obtain It. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit Librivox.org. Read by Dar'Keith Lofton. Strength and How to Obtain It by Eugene Sandow. Part 2, Chapter 5. The Living Weights. About this time there were many strongmen. Each hall in London can boast of at least one. It was also a great weight-lifting period. When I lifted my heaviest bell, 280 pounds, the other strongmen put out a placard stating they were lifting 300 pounds. By the time I had practiced sufficiently to raise the weights I was lifting from 280 pounds to 300 pounds, they came out with the statement that they were lifting 320 pounds. And so their little game went on. For my part, I was determined to introduce a novelty. Henceforth, there should be actually living weights. I started, therefore, at the Tivoli with a new display, lifting a horse at arm's length above my head and marching with it to musical accompaniment. This was followed by a display with human dumbbells. Taking a long bar with a large ball at each end, I placed in each ball a man, and I raised bar, balls, and men slowly over the head. After putting them down, the balls opened and the men rolled out. This performance I accomplished in order to equal the feat of lifting 300 pounds dead weight. Further, I lifted and supported on my chest a grand pianoforte, with an orchestra of 8 performers on top of the instrument. There was still a fourth feat which I performed, knowing that no one could equal it, and that was to turn a somersault whilst holding a weight of 56 pounds in each hand. These performances I repeated in the provinces. During this tour, I had the pleasure of visiting not only many of the chief cities of England, but also Edinburgh and Glasgow. Who can fail to be deeply impressed by the grandeur and magnificence of the scenery of Scotland? Certainly I was not proof against it. Never have I visited a more beautiful city than Edinburgh, and the Scottish people themselves I found exceedingly kind and agreeable. Since then, I have been to Ireland and can testify that its people are as frank, generous, and warm-hearted as they are always represented to be. Certainly, some of the happiest days of my life were those spent in the Emerald Isle. At the end of my first provincial tour, I returned to London to fulfill an engagement at the Palace Theatre. Here, I introduced another novelty. In place of the orchestra, I held 3 horses on my chest. These animals stood on a plank, one at each side and the third in the center, holding the balance in a game of seesaw. Included in this performance was the feat in which a horse guardsman on his horse rode over me, thus completing, at that time, the chapter of living weights. End of section 22.